Appreciate it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I had to go live because I was about to lose our space. But no, it's all cool. We always have a few minutes because we start actually a few minutes early. And it always takes about 5 minutes to kind of get started. So, Fred, I wanted you to meet Christy Wood Turner, a great friend of mine from West Virginia. Well, she lives in West Virginia. Christy, I don't know, is that where you're from?
Yeah, actually, just right up the road. Yeah, so I am West Virginia through and through. I lived in Northern Virginia through high school, but other than that, I've been in West Virginia.
Oh, so you know the DMV then? If you've been in Northern Virginia through high school, what part?
I do.
Leesburg, Ashburn, Herndon?
I went to. I lived in Centerville, but I went to Chantilly.
Oh yeah, I know Chantilly very well. Okay, very cool. Well,
Yeah,
you,
back in the day, back in the late early '90s, it was you had to. There was no Centerville High School. We had to travel to
yeah,
Chantilly.
yeah. Well, you from, as we say, Washingtonians. You from the area, So by way of West
Right.
Virginia. So Fred, I met Christy when I went to West Virginia to work on my PhD back in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And Christy has a great position at West Virginia University, has made some major strides in her department. And outside of that, she's just a phenomenal woman. She's got children. I won't call her a grandma because she goes by Mimi, right? She got a grandchild.
Yes.
Yeah, so we go way back, and she's super cool with Murph.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Are
kind
you,
of the full circle.
are you in the field of psychology as well, or are you a counselor? What is it that you do, Christy? Say that
I'm a
again.
social scientist, so I love, yeah, sociology.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I applied community engaged scholarship to social change, which is really fun and interesting. So lots of challenges there.
Very interesting.
And then the course you teach tonight. Well, you didn't teach it tonight, but you had to teach it a few weeks back. Tell me the name of the course again.
Ethics. I was teaching an MBA class, some business ethics.
Oof.
Yeah. Right now in 2021, business ethics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Well, I'm glad you're going to wear your sociology hat tonight. When Eric is on,
Yeah.
he wears his psychology hat and gives us a lot of terms and phrases that none of us know what they mean. But he's great at breaking them down into layman's terms. But welcome to the show, Christy. We're in part 6 of a series called "The Unspoken Truths on Why You're Single." This is a show, and you've watched this before, Christy, where we as men just talk about relationships from a man's perspective. We certainly never try to um, tell women how women think. We just tell women how men think in relationships. And
Right.
oftentimes within each series, we like to bring strong women on to talk about the experiences from a woman's lens because we value that just as much, or if not more, than our own lens, particularly around relationships. I think,
Yeah.
Fred and I and Marv and Reggie and Murph and several of us who've been on the show for the last 6 months, a lot of this relationship stuff we've learned late in life. We didn't learn
Yeah.
this growing up in our adolescent years. A lot of failed relationships, some failed engagements, some failed marriages, and then some of us got it right. And I think we found that on the show, a lot of the women that have come on and been great guests have just gotten it earlier than we have. And so we recognize the importance of coming together and having this kind of open dialogue between men and women about relationships, the importance of that. So this episode is about
Yeah.
emotional unavailability. Last week we dealt, Fred, last week we dealt with, what was the piece we dealt with last week?
Emotional intelligence.
Cool.
Another interesting topic.
Yeah.
Yes.
We could
Yeah.
have gone on for days on emotional intelligence.
We could have.
Yeah, yeah, but we wanted to just kind of wrap the series. It's probably going to be a 2-part. We'll probably go again next week on this because I think that this is just a very comprehensive and exhaustive topic, and one that we don't really talk about much is just the availability of one's emotions in a relationship and how important that is. I mean, just even doing some of the reading, and I know Fred, you're a huge reader as well, and Christy's a sociologist. I think just most folks just don't know how important to be emotionally available, how important that is for the congruence and the success of the relationship. I think we look at things like, tangible things, jobs, 401k, nice car, nice house, vacation when you want to. We look at those things as being, kind of the barometer, right, Christy? If a relationship can be successful,
Yeah.
and we don't look at the emotional availability. And so, with your sociology lens, for a minute, if you could maybe define for us in just your own words what emotional unavailability is. What does that mean?
Right. Well, you hit the nail on the head early on as soon as you started out, and you got it right. We don't know until we know, and we learn through life. And as with all instances in a society, as society becomes congruent with each other, they learn how to balance off of each other. So I feel like it might be the natural thing for humans to learn as they grow. We shouldn't know as adolescents, how we interpret our emotional intelligence. That comes at later points in life as we get challenged with things that have to help us grow and wake up those areas of who we are. Same thing with emotionally unavailable. I feel like the biggest common denominator between men, women, even children who are unavailable emotionally is fear. There is a defining fear that says, I need to step away from something that's going to hurt me, so I'm going to close it off in some way. I'm going to, add other balance. I'm going to do something else with my life in place of this commitment or this connection. It's the inability to release a fear so that you can gain that stronger commitment of who you are, risking telling folks who you really are.
Yeah, I like that. That fear, risking telling folks who you really are. That pullback out of fear of really getting too close. Uh,
Yeah.
Fred, adjust your lighting just for a second. I want to see your pretty bald head.
I think it's the window behind me. There's light coming in,
Okay.
and I don't think I'm not the technician that I sometimes make myself out to be. So um, things may be. How was that?
This is a little bit better.
I need some I need some special effects. I don't know. I think as the sun goes down back here behind me,
It'll probably get better.
in the back is the west, and the sun is going down right behind me. So
Okay.
I think there's a glare on the left side of my head, right? That window.
No, it's not bad.
Okay. Hopefully it'll improve.
But Fred, I want you to respond and not respond in the sense of right and wrong, but respond. I think Christy really kind of laid the foundation, theoretically what availability means and really what our reaction is when we feel like we get too close and we protect ourselves out of fear. Talk about that for a second, Fred.
Well, as she said, you hit the nail on the head when you brought up the subject, and then she went on to hammer it further into this plank when she talked about how we protect ourselves from what we fear. In relationships, in order to surrender yourself to someone, and in order to have a successful relationship, you have to be willing to take the risk of getting hurt. And people protect themselves from it. So many of us don't have the psychological history or the psychological wherewithal to sort of marshal our self-esteem on every occasion, on every interpersonal occasion, and proceed without the fear of rejection or just the hurt that could ensue from the vulnerability involved with surrendering your feelings, your emotions to someone. So we oftentimes, I think, how we've had Murph on, and he's talked about how we embrace or we seem to be attracted to he says our pain, which basically he's talking about we are attracted to the people who have traumatized us in the past. Well, I think when, in a sense, our idea of love turns into, or our idea of relationships turns into a search for that person for which we can blame an unsuccessful relationship on, or from whom we don't expect much, or from whom we may not have to surrender much because we are afraid. It's kind of, my favorite word is an insidious thing. It's a psychological conundrum that we have to deal with. It's subconscious in some sense, but sometimes we self-sabotage and look for relationships, a long distance relationship, somebody on a vacation that we fall in love with, somebody who's married who won't commit to us, and we know that, but we may incur a whole lot of sympathy because we're searching for love. We're searching for love, but are we really searching for love, or are we searching for a safe relationship that we don't have to surrender wholly into? So
Yeah.
the idea of safety goes a long way, because the person who is unavailable is that person who can't commit because they have a lot to work out. Uh, I know this whole our podcast or our Facebook cast is all about trying to help women understand us as men, and how I think what we'll get to, I know, talking about how to avoid making an unavailable man an unavailable partner, an emotionally unavailable man
Yeah.
an unavailable partner. So some of the telltale signs of an unavailable man are, that guy who can't commit. And like Chrissy says, oftentimes out of fear. That's a commitment to diving into, or at least surrendering to, a more vulnerable relationship, spending more time. There's a wealth of things that come along with the kind of vulnerability it takes to actually be emotionally available. So I know we'll dive into it, but those are just some of my thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, no, those are good thoughts. And if you're just joining us, just tuning in, we're talking tonight with special guest Christy Wood Turner out of West Virginia, sociologist. The Unspoken Truths on Why You're Single, episode 6. Do you know? How do you know if a man is emotionally unavailable? And so we kind of laid the foundation for what emotionally unavailable availability is. But I'm very curious in this next question, Christian. I'm going to put it on the screen if you can see it. If not, I'll just read it out. It's a true false question. This is for you and every woman who's in your social circle. I don't care how small or how large, how extended or how close. You have had these conversations about a man being emotionally available. True or false, Christy? The desire to build a deep emotional connection with a man plays a big part in a woman's search for the right guy. Is that true or is that false?
All right, I'm going to definitely show my attachment to higher education here and question your wording on your. It really depends on what you mean by right guy,
Yeah.
Jason. So
Yeah.
what do we at the right guy at the time, or the right guy for a future that you desire? What is it that you're looking for? That is going to depend. I would say true. As somebody who's got a birthday coming up and those numbers just keep going higher and higher, the right guy is somebody who can support that emotional piece, and give you kind of the safety that you were talking about. We fear that is also what we look for in the relationship. The older we get, the more we understand who we are. We have the 401k, we got the money, I got the car, I got the house. I'm not looking for that. I'm
Right.
looking for a partnership, and that comes with the safety of understanding we're on the same emotional page.
Mm.
So the right guy at the right time, I would say true to this, as we start to look for somebody who will partner for life, who can help make decisions for us.
Absolutely, yeah. And the premise to this series is, when we started 6 series ago or 6 episodes ago, is women who are desirous of long-term relationships and have a hard time finding the one they're looking for, right? So we spent the first couple of episodes really
Yep.
looking at what the demographics of those women look like, where are they from, what do they look like, and many of those women who are single and desirous of relationships are well educated, and to your point, 401k, own their own house, have their own cars. Most of them have little to no debt, and if they have debt, it's only student loans, right? And so the research study that we pulled this information from, we were just curious as men, well, why does this exist? Why are women who are really at the top of the food chain, why did it seem like they are single but desirous of relationships, and women who are not in their proverbial food chain, less educated, maybe make less money. Social circles are much smaller. Cultural capital is much smaller, right? Why are those women seemingly in relationships? Doesn't mean they're in good ones. Just means they're in
Right.
relationships, right? So that's kind of how this whole series even started.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And through the conversation that you had, you guys have been on the right track. I would say that to further the argument that was already made in a previous one that I watched, women are looking for someone to move with them through the next levels.
Mm.
If you are not somebody who has that ambition, the goal setting mentality, the ability to be independently caring for yourself and your family and the things around you, if you're not at that level, you do not look for a partner who will advance with you through those levels. So the partnership is easier for a man when a woman doesn't have these pieces together yet. They find their ability to step in and feel more manly or more able to give to the relationship if this is not something that's already established. I feel like once you have an established woman who is in these situations where, listen, we're finding ourselves single and we're looking around going, wait a minute, how did this happen? Maybe it's because the challenge is not that we're too challenging for a man, but the challenge is a man needs to be on the same emotional level to be able to step in and jump right up with the woman. So the challenge is not that I can't do it with you. It's you don't make me feel manly if I jump in and you've got that already. So it's hard to find that kind of emotional connection once we feel like we're already at a certain plateau and we need to move forward from there.
No, absolutely, and we'll share some personal anecdotes. Fred, I want you to jump in on your personal side, but Christy, to your point, I think it took me a lot of years. I know it took me a lot of years to really understand what it meant to be emotionally available, right? And I think that some of through the vicissitudes of life and some of the influences, peer influences, and then when you get off to college, you find new social circles to be a part of, and there are also new influences, and you don't want to feel left out from the group that you spend time with, and so you almost kind of adopt and assimilate a lot of those practices, whether they be good or bad or indifferent. And I think that as a young man coming into his own maturity and his own independence, he's grappling with, well, do I do as society says I should do, or do I listen to the own message or voice that I hear inside of my head? And I grappled with that, right, as a young freshman in college at West Virginia University, number one party school in the nation at that time, and I found myself on the wrong side of wrong many times, especially dealing with relationships and being emotionally available. Because to your point earlier, it was the fear. It was the fear of I don't want to be rejected, and because I've experienced rejection once was enough. I was like, oh, I'll do whatever I need to do not to experience this feeling again. But it's interesting that men take that route many times. But if you look back at women who I know personally and went to college with, they have experienced rejection in relationships 10 more times than I experienced it, which meant that they were more than willing to jump back in and try again. And we as men were like, no, that hurt too much. I don't want to experience that again. So I will remain emotionally unavailable. So I think we end up doing that, Fred, and I want you to chime in. I think we end up doing that subconsciously. I didn't know then that that's what I was doing, but as I got older and matured, I realized I have had this sign around my neck that was invisible that said I am emotionally unavailable because I was trying to protect myself. Fred, jump in. You're on mute.
I do that at least twice an episode. What I was about to say was a sign around your neck, or you were giving off this vibe or things that women should have recognized, because that's something we need to talk about too. When a man tells you he's unavailable emotionally, believe it, right? Don't think that you can bring him out of his shell. One thing I'll say about overcoming my fear of emotional hurt and that pain was, I actually remember, I was thinking about this today, Jason and Christy. I remember a time when I was really young, thinking to myself that I could be really hurt in the relationship that I was trying to establish with my now wife. We met at 19 and 18. This is something that is probably unusual nowadays, but my wife and I met at, I think, about 18. I turned 19 maybe 9 months later, and I'm about that much older than her. And we've been married for 5 years after that. We were married. But I remember thinking, after another youthful relationship where I was just young and stupid and got my immature feelings hurt, and I met my future wife, and I thought, what am I going to do with this situation? Is this worth laying my emotions on the line for? And I decided that love was worth it. That the way I felt was so awesome that it was worth rolling the dice. And I also felt at the time that it wouldn't kill me. If I got my feelings hurt and my wife, now my wife, rejected me at that time or along the way, then I'd get over it somehow. I would make it through that and get over it. But what I knew from my own Christian experiences and from what I had been taught, and this is one thing, I had the psychological foundation to weather this kind of storm if it were to occur, I felt. And not everybody does have a psychological history that allows them to make a decision like this at such a young age. But thank God I did. And I thought to myself, it's worth it. I think she's worth it. I think she's worth the roll of this dice, this lifetime dice and this experience. And if it doesn't work out, then it just doesn't work out and I move on. But I do get it. I do understand how some people just don't have the psychological and emotional fortitude from a lifetime of experience, at least in their youth. Some people have had a lot of trauma, a lot of untoward experiences, and a lot of pain at a time when they didn't know how to handle it, when they didn't have the coping mechanisms, and they were never given them those coping mechanisms, nor did they ever have those experiences explained to them, nor were they ever picked up and shown the type of love to help them weather those types of emotional storms. So they carry that emptiness, those burdens, into every relationship that they encounter. And nobody wants to go through some type of experience where you have unrequited love or emotions, or you are faced again with something that you haven't even come to grips with in your life. The lack of love from a parent, or some abuse, physical or sexual or psychological abuse. So I had a foundation that not many people have. In my experiences,
most people don't have that, Fred.
No.
I'm serious. Like you're talking of like the Huxtable lifestyle, right? Most people don't have a Huxtable lifestyle, bro.
But don't believe me now. My lifestyle was not some crystal stairway to, some some experience where I just knew everything. I had pain, I had suffering, but I had a foundation that allowed me the coping mechanisms to deal with it.
You went into relationships knowing that if it didn't work out, it was going to be okay. And I'm telling you, the vast majority of men that I've seen come through college and then beyond, and Christy, you're in a college environment. You're around a lot of young budding males with high hormones, and so you can speak to this as well. But Fred, a lot of young men just didn't have that psychological and emotional foundation to push through that. And so what they did was, I'll do whatever I have to do not to experience this pain again. Right?
Absolutely.
And so you remain as men so emotionally unavailable, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. And some men never recover, right? When you experience that pain one time, one really, really good time. And I remember my junior year in college, man, I remember I didn't even go to class for 2 weeks, got teachers emailing me, asking me why I'm not coming to class, why I'm not turning in assignments. I was losing weight. I wasn't going to the gym. I used to play ball every day, right? I had gone through, man, a very depressive 2.5 weeks, right? And it was the guys that were in my social circle saying, hey, get up, dust yourself off. This is how you not allow that to happen to you again. These are the things you have to put in place, right? So I was given some bad advice in a situation like that, and you're talking about having a psychological foundation that most men, I believe, just don't ever get.
I agree with you. No, I honestly agree with you, and that's a result of it's a legacy in a lot of cases, a legacy of poor parenting, bad experiences, and just what's left over from people just doing the best that they can to try to raise kids the best that they can. It's the result of bad examples, poor examples, um, bad influences, being around the wrong people, listening to the wrong people,
Mhm.
people giving you bad advice about women, especially a lot of times coming from men. I've found in my life that the best people I could go to for advice about women was actually women. Uh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Women know women much better than men, and I always had a boatload of platonic female friends, and it was to my advantage to always seek them out for advice about
Yeah.
my relationships. And matter of fact, I had a good friend who I spoke with when I was trying to court my wife. I made out an outline, Roman numeral A, I mean, capital I, Roman numeral. I made out an outline that I showed my friend about how I plan to woo and capture my wife's affections, and she thought it was the cutest thing. But all that pain, all that inability to process pain and to take those emotional risks that are required to have a successful relationship are the result of a lot of emotional baggage. And the thing about it is, we're pursuing women who have an equal amount of baggage a lot of times, whether they think that they are emotionally available or not. Many of the women that we pursue are emotionally unavailable as well.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Christy, I want to get back to you. Again, appreciate you being our guest. And Fred alluded to a question that I want to ask you with this next one. He said a lot of the questions about women, men should really go to other women about, and I agree wholeheartedly. And so, for our listeners, and even for Fred and I, what are some characteristics or patterns that you have seen or heard about from other women in your social circles of emotionally unavailable men? Because if you ask that same question to men, men will say, "Oh, I'm not emotionally unavailable. I'm here. I'm present. I'm
Yeah.
physically here, right?" And so I don't want to ask this question to men because I don't think that I'm going to get a really good answer. And I think that if there are inquiring women who want to know, this answer needs to really come from a woman. What have you seen as characteristics of an emotionally unavailable man?
Well, it's really difficult to do any kind of classification of anyone. Everybody is so individual at where they're at and how they express themselves in life. But I want to throw something out there really quickly to kind of frame that answer for me. Number one is that the experience of emotional availability is gendered. And you alluded to that in the fact that when you had a depressive situation or you were trying to get over, you had 2 weeks in there. And as soon as you said 2 weeks, I kind of was a little shocked. Like, wow, you said that as if that was a long time. I haven't
Mhm.
known a real solid relationship of a woman getting over a man for months at times. So
Mhm.
sometimes dragging that on even further. So what happens is when we were children, if you think back, if your son falls down, the first thing we want to do for our little boys is say, "Hey, get back up, dust yourself
Mhm.
off, get back on the
Mhm.
bike ride. You're a man. Get up,
Mhm.
whatever." If our daughter falls, and you might be experiencing this, some Jason, our first
Right.
instinct is to run and make sure they are okay, and cater to the emotional availability right then of that child. Are you okay? How do you feel? Did this? We
Mhm.
don't do that with our men, and that's not because
Mm.
it's something we've chosen, it's something we want to do. It is because this is something that is institutionalized and socialized
Yes.
from the jump.
Yes.
This is how we treat our boys, and this is how we treat our girls. It goes
Mhm.
all the way through our lives with us and into this kind of unavailability. Let me throw out the theory of Irving Goffman. So I'm not sure if you studied Irving much, but if you like theories and you like to really understand people who really are out there innovative in their theories, check out Irving Goffman. He has a theory called dramaturgy. And
Mm.
dramaturgy basically is saying that we are all actors in life. We act out every day. So we wake up in the morning and we go, okay, so what do I need to act out today? Who is my audience? And that is the face that we put on. Throughout a day, we can play many characters. I wake up in the morning and I play the character of mom. I move to work and I play the character of boss. I move from here and go to class and I'm the character of a teacher. If I see that same student in Walmart, I'm a different person than I was when I was in the classroom because my acting has to change with the audience that I'm with. What Irving Goffman says is that it is very difficult for someone to let down all of their acting skills and be the true self with anyone, which is that the idea of availability. And they say that everyone has a backstage and front stage self. Backstage, you are allowed to be more of who you are. Front stage, you better be on show. But there's always a secret or something within everyone where they do not share with anyone. And if we could tap into that emotion or that actor, that part of your life, that is when the emotional availability becomes large and it becomes safe and it becomes encompassing. But get through the acting, helping people understand, helping the man understand that you do not have to act when you're with me, that I'm not an audience. That's the difficult challenge that women have. But it's easy to see from a distance. You can tell immediately how they act with you, how they act with friends, how they act online. If they are different, your man is acting. Your man is playing a character for the responsibility of the audience he is in front of. And that is a very dangerous situation when it comes to somebody who is supposed to be emotionally available.
Yo, Christy, that's heavy. I mean, John Drury, I didn't research him through my grad program, but I'm certainly going to do that, this week. I want to learn more about it. We even had one of our listeners who knows about the Drury theory make a comment to what you said. But I want to know a little bit more about that theory and about, your own personal connection to the theory, whether that be what you teach your students, how you raise your children, right? How do we, and this is advice from a woman to a man, how do we not feel the need to put on an act, to put on a front, to make it seem like we are more than what we really are? Is it the influence of social media that has really pained, this I gotta wear another face, or is it low self-esteem? Like, what's the impetus of like the reason for why we're wearing these masks? Number one, and number two, why we can't really connect deeply to another person out of fear they may really find out who we really are.
Yeah. Goffman would say that it's human nature. It's human nature. If we go all the way back and look as far back as we can, and if we're under the belief that there were cavemen at the time who were taking care of families, even at that point as a human in society, you have to relieve all else that you're thinking about and act in the moment. So men, whether you were scared or not, you were responsible for getting the food for your family. Women, whether you knew how to or not, you had to care for the children. You had to keep them alive for the next generations, right? So we were taught early on that yourself needed to stay inside. You needed to bring to the table the things that can help you be successful. And success is shaped by your environment. Whether success means avoiding the same kind of toxic relationships you're used to, or if success means growth. Either way, we are taught that is what we have to bring to the table every day.
Yo, that's heavy. Fred, I see your forehead wrinkling. You want to ask Christy something? Go ahead.
No, it's a very thought-provoking theory and topic, and I agree with a lot of it. To your point or your question about how do you, I think our question is how do you remain authentic, right? In light of poor parenting, lack of self-esteem, fear, aversion to vulnerability. There are a whole lot of things that make people terrified. You were talking about the prehistoric man and their need to go out and, leave women at home gathering, and while we went out and killed the mastodon or something. Authenticity is saying, I'm scared as hell, but going out and trying to kill a mastodon.
Right.
That's how you keep it real. The question is, how much are you prepared to reveal of yourself, and how much self-esteem do you have? Where do you get your self-esteem from? Are you afraid to say that you're afraid? Are you afraid to admit your emotions? Do you think that it demeans you or lessens you as a man if you are vulnerable with a woman? Or are you afraid to cry at a movie, to cry at a funeral, to show emotional vulnerability, or to cry at your daughter's wedding or whatever it is, or to say that you're uncertain, you don't know something? Vulnerability is, I think, to be rewarded. I think vulnerability and the it takes a lot of courage, and that's what we don't seem to realize. We tend to define courage and manliness with the wrong terms, and we started, like Christy said, we start real young with that. We socialize boys to, a kid can fall and like twist his head around backwards facing the other direction. If it's male, you see at least if he gets up. You don't go running over there to see if he can still move his limbs. If he's paralyzed from the neck down, you wait and see if he can get up.
Right.
If your daughter so much as shows you a fake bug bite to put the 12th Band-Aid on out of the box, you pretend like it's the worst injury since 9/11. You know what I'm saying? You just go on and on and on, and we socialize our kids in this way, and it carries over. And I think to the detriment of both sexes, because girls have to be re-socialized to realize that they can be achievers, that they can accomplish great things in a lot of ways, and boys have to realize that if you want to have a real sexual, okay, that's Freudian big time. That's really not what I was thinking about. Hold on a second.
We've talked about sex on this show, but not today.
We talked about sex on this show for like 45 episodes. It was all Jason's idea.
Yeah, right. Not at all.
I don't know why, but anyway, finally we got off for sex. But I do keep some duct tape handy from our sponsor. But anyway, but what I was saying, she's like, "What the hell?" But we socialize boys. We don't give them the right to emote. We don't give them the right to be vulnerable. We give them this protective mode where they have to create distance between them and their romantic their partner.
Hey, Fred, let me just make a point about what you're saying, because I totally agree, but I'm also thinking, and then I want you to finish and then have Christy chime in, because I'm about to talk about women for a minute. Now, at a young age, I was very in tune with my emotions because my mom was very in tune with hers. My dad traveled often. My grandmother, my mom raised us mostly. So I was able to see the emotions that took place in my home between my mom and my grandmother. But when I began to show my emotions to a young girl at 15, 16, and 17, and felt these strong feelings, whether there was just lust or love, but I called it love, the response I got was not the response I was looking for. So when you talk about men who are emotionally unavailable, some men who have had a emotional experience at a very young age of love or just a strong like, if they've experienced not being reciprocated, that can also create emotional unavailability, right? And so I think also the unspoken truths are something you spoke about earlier, Fred. Some people just hit it at different points in life. And back to Christy's point, but if you remain true to self, that's the key. Remaining true to self, because I jumped off the emotional ship when I realized that it didn't give me it didn't yield what I was putting out. I'm done with this. I'm off the ship. I'm about to do something else, right? I think the question I was asking Christy earlier, and I really want to try to tease out of our conversation before we close, is how do you remain man and woman true to self when you know that that's who you are, but you're having to wear this new mask because of the way that society or life or experiences or relationships has made you feel, right? How do you remain authentic and true to self? Now, this is something Jason wishes at 19 and 20 he knew. So for every 19 and 20 and 25-year-old who's experiencing this, I'm really trying to give you all some answers tonight.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that's why you see us sitting here single and on your show. We really figure out a way to recognize early who can see our true selves and accept it and who cannot. So how do you stay your true self? You risk putting it out there and understand that your fallback and your independence can take care of yourself. So it comes from self-love and self-abilities to be independent. So if you have that, then you can make sure that your very first instinct with your man or with the person you're dating is can you see my true self and respect it? And if not, you're easy letting go, easy. And you do that early enough as we get older, it's really not an issue. So what it is knowing who you are and loving yourself so you don't see love of who you are, right? You do that first, and then you put it out there early on to who you're dating. Make sure you're aware that you're going to try to do the whole, adjustment to, the first date and the first time you meet me, and the house always has to be clean, and I don't want you to see me in dirty sneakers or whatever you do when you start dating. You need to recognize early on at our age. Like, that is not nonsense, man. Put on the dirty sneakers. Show them what your old pajama shirt looks like. Let's go. This is who I am, right? And then give them a minute to walk out if they need to, right? So love yourself first and know that that is always waiting on you, and have the ability to feel safe enough to put your real self out there and see who is willing to take it respectfully and appreciate it.
So you're saying just let out a big fart on the first date, basically.
Why not?
Just not at the table while you're walking, holding hands. Just like let it go, let go, and let God. I agree with you 100%. I'm teasing because you're right on point for real. When you're young, everybody goes out to the club to meet Mr. or Miss Right, and they put on their best self, and they just pretend. They go out and they be the latest. They try to dress like and become the latest sex symbol on nowadays is TikTok, YouTube. Name some social media person. They go out and want to pretend like they're popping bottles like the best of the social media stars or pop stars or whoever. But as you get older, you realize that's not getting you anything, and what you're getting is just somebody else as fake as you are. As fake as you're becoming. As you get older, you do realize that if you have not come to grips with who you are, and if you haven't accepted who you are, I mean, like you said, Chrissy, you just go out there and go, look, this here is it. And if you don't like this, you need to go find out what's wrong with you, because I'm cool. You know what I mean? If you don't like me, you some kind of asshole, because I think I'm pretty damn swell. So I don't need to waste any more time with you, right? It's that simple. It really is, man. When you have that kind of self-esteem, and you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect with all of your flaws, with all of the stuff that you're dealing with. If you're not okay with yourself, you can't expect anybody else to be okay with you.
Yeah,
because you're gonna be faking. You're gonna be faking the whole time. And you can't fake forever.
Let me take that a step further and say that as much as you love yourself, you must be able to relay the fact that you are open, that you are flawed, and you are open to listening and hearing the true self of your partner. That has to come just as early as the relaying of the true self of you. If they do not feel safe to be their true self, you're still not getting anywhere.
And if they can't, and here's the thing, when you're emotionally vulnerable to somebody else and they don't reciprocate, and if you give them however much time you're comfortable with to reciprocate and show that they're opening up, that they're showing you their true selves, if they don't do that, it's time to go. Seriously, if nobody's going to invest equally in you, and I'm talking about investing, putting your emotions, pushing it all to the middle of the table and taking that gamble to say, listen, I'm showing you the real me, and I'm giving you the opportunity to flip your cards over, push your chips to the middle of this emotional table, this relationship table with me. If you're gonna, hide your hand or hold it close to your vest or not tell me half truths or keep me at a distance, you don't deserve my trust, and you don't deserve me trusting my emotions and feelings and future with you. Time to go.
Christy, the theory that you brought up made me think about a trip I took a couple of years ago to Miami. I went down for a bachelor party, and
Oh,
yeah, we were on, Ocean Drive. I think is the main drag in Miami, in South Beach. If you've not been before, and there are these places in South Beach, Christy, where you can rent high end cars, and I'm not talking about a Yukon, a Denali. I'm talking about Lamborghinis.
yeah.
You can rent Porsches, right? You can rent them for the day, for the hour, by the minute. I don't know, but there, I just saw these grown men, and I was probably late 20s at the time, but I'm talking about men probably had me by 10, 15, maybe 20 years. Grown men who were in these luxury vehicles that they rented from this luxury car place, and they were driving down Ocean's Drive. They were simply making laps. I mean, I seen those same vehicles and those same men riding around, going like 10, 15 mile an hour, window down, head poked out, to see about the attention that they can get. When you brought up that theory, it made me think about that trip. And I couldn't put it to theory at the time because I was too young to understand. But I'm thinking, like, who do you have to be in this moment to get
Yeah.
attention, right? And I'm wondering,
Yeah.
like, how many of us as men do that subconsciously? We go into
Yes.
work and we feel like we have to be someone else in order to get attention. And so I'm just so grateful that you kind of brought this up in organically in this show tonight. And it's really made me start to think, like, man, I got to have some more conversations with some of the young men that I mentor. Fred and I both were in the same fraternity, and mentor a lot of young men, and I just feel that they have this feeling that they have to be someone else in order to get the attention that they desire.
Let me just say real quick, because what they have to understand, though, is fundamentally you have to really know what you desire, because that kind of act won't get you the right kind of woman. Because the right kind of woman, an intelligent woman, a self-respecting woman, will sniff that out and won't give you the attention you think that that's going to garner. America and kids nowadays, not just kids, people are so warped and so deluded and under illusions that social media and just society has placed on them, that we want the wrong things and we go about achieving it in the wrong way. A lot of women end up with the wrong guys because they accept guys who are emotionally unavailable because, number one, maybe that's what they're seeking because of their own psychotrauma. It's what they're seeking because they don't really want to be emotionally available either, or they just caught up in the whole social media thing and how warped America is now, that they don't know what a good man looks like, and a lot of good brothers don't know what it means to be a real man either, because they've been socialized to believe it's some hardened, hard, tough dude that's not emotional, who can't be vulnerable, who can't be available. So we're very confused in societally nowadays.
Yeah, it's been a great show, Christy. I want you to share just some last thoughts as we wrap up. Appreciate you being on the show. I mean, last minute I shot you a text this morning, and will you be on? You were like, yeah, I'm cool, I'm down. So thank you for just answering the call last minute, but also bringing a lens that I didn't anticipate. This is why I love how organic our shows are. We leave them open, and we hear something, we'll just run with it because it's not scripted. We didn't have 21 questions. We really wanted to know, like, from our special guests, your thoughts on the topic. So thank you for introducing that theory and sharing any last few thoughts you have just related to this topic of being emotionally unavailable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I love that you guys do this. This is such important conversations. Just the ability to hear a conversation between two men about these issues, really honestly, it's awakening in a lot of ways. So I'm sure the audience is feeling the same way I did. I'll leave it on the note of raising my son. So I've dealt with all kinds of different men and their situations, and it's given me the framework or the focus to say, you know what, I need to instill different things in my son. So he does do the social media stuff, and you know, my biggest thing for him is, you know, who are you proud of? What are you proud of? You are not proud of the shoes you put on and, you know, the picture that you just took on Instagram. You're proud of who you are and the strengths that you bring to the table. So I think that we need to be more appreciative and reflect on the men that we're dating and tell them when we are appreciative of the things they feel are their strengths that are not material, that are not gendered, that are not stereotyped, that are the genuine things that they feel that are their strengths, so that they can continue to bond with who they are and the strengths that they bring to the table. And those are not the ones that are visible outside on social media or in these different frameworks. These are the ones that they truly believe within their heart that they have and that they hold individually. We need to appreciate men for that, and we need to tell them just as plainly as we can.
I felt that.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. I would have tell my wife that. Honey, Christy said.
Teach me my strengths.
That's so good though. That's the truth, man.
That was good. Yeah,
that's the truth. That's empowering.
Christy, thank you for your lens. Thank you for your voice. We have to have you back. So you know,
we do.
Yeah. We gotta have you back. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
You guys, I appreciate it. It was great to meet you, Fred, Jason, as always.
Yeah,
thank you guys very much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it, Christy. Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah, Fred, man, that was fire, bro. I sat here while Christy was talking about that theory, and you know, I'm a scholar, researcher. That was a theory that I hadn't come across.
Right.
I looked it up while she was talking, and I was like, my goodness, man, it made me think not just about relationships, but how we oftentimes mask who we are, even in our jobs, right? And you know, we have to become someone else many times. And you know, Fred, as Black men in white America, we have to, you know, code switch is a phrase I've heard used. We have to, you know, kind of wear a different mask. We can't be our true, authentic selves. And Fred, I'm wondering if, because we spend so much time at work, 8-10 hours a day, we spend so much time in spaces that don't completely accept us, if we subconsciously and invariably take that same energy back into relationships, even if the woman is like, yo, I got you, you ain't got to worry about nothing. If we still wear that mask because we're so used to wearing it.
Yeah. No, I get it. And it makes you wonder, and honest God, it makes you wonder, you know, how you, or if I even dust myself off adequately before I, you know, step my second foot in the door when I come home. I try to on my drive home to just sort of unburden myself and leave the day's events at the job. But I think the biggest key to consistency in your demeanor and in your carriage, you know, just who you are, is to just try to be authentic, to try to be yourself in all circumstances. You know, you have to decide who you are, you know, and that takes a while, man. That's not going to happen to young people real quick in their lives. You know what I mean? It really does take a while. It takes some trials. It takes some things that you have to go through, that you have to see yourself through and come out the other side of, to realize that, you know, I stood up for myself. I behaved in a way that I was taught to behave, that was manly, that was respectful, respectable, and appropriate, Christian, thoughtful, considerate. And that's the way I intend to live my life. Now, you got to do that inside the house as well as outside the house. You know, I always say that I'm a respecter of persons, not titles, not alphabets, not, you know, you can have a PhD, a MD, a ABCD, EFG. It doesn't make any difference to me if you don't have respectable character, if you're not honest, if you're not the type of person that I would, you know, associate with in my personal life, then I'm not going to pretend like we're friends
at work. We're going to be friendly associates, but we're not necessarily friends, but you have to try to be as authentic and true to yourself as possible so you can be as close to the same at work as you are in church, as you are at home, as you are socially.
Yo, Fred, everything you're saying, man, it's 100% correct, bro. Everything that you're saying, and I think it's the practical application that I think that I struggle with in being more authentic. When I come home, because I'm wearing that mask, all day long at work, right? But I also think I struggle with it because I feel as if the true me is too much. You feel what I'm saying? The true me is too much, and so it's almost like you have to, and I want to use the right phrase, that you have to
Be less than 100%.
Yeah.
Be acceptable.
Yeah. Not be 100. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No, I get it, man.
And I don't mean being emotionally
Fake.
connected or emotionally available. Yeah, it's about I want to be 100% me, right?
Right.
100% me in my communication, 100% me in my desires, 100% me in things that I dislike, right? I want to be able to be right.
You're right.
And I think that and I can't speak for all men, but I'm talk about just our small circle. I think that men that we come in contact with have a hard time with that as well, because we have experienced some of the greatest accolades in life and some of the greatest achievements, but those things don't always bring us excitement.
Right.
And it doesn't always translate to excitement for us. It's exciting for everybody else, right? But it's not necessarily exciting for us. People are like, oh my God, you have a PhD. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. That's awesome. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Well, I was supposed to do that. So you're more excited about it than I am, because that's just who I am. Like my grit, my grind, my work ethic. I'm like Will Smith. Will Smith said, man, either two things are gonna happen when we're on this treadmill. You're gonna be on one side and I'm gonna be on the other. One or two things gonna happen. Either you're gonna get off first, or I'm gonna die trying. Right? I mean, that's my personality. I'm just that relentless. But to this point of being authentic and being able to be your complete self, I wonder if some men struggle because they make the assumption, right, that the person that they're connected to can't handle 100% of who they really are.
I will say this. It is okay not to be completely 100 with everybody, because I firmly believe that not everybody deserves to know you that well. And I don't mean you're hiding anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that not everybody is worthy of me giving them 100% of who I am. We don't have the time. They wouldn't understand. They would mistake me. They would, they just wouldn't understand. There's no time to understand the context of why I say and do the things that I say and do in certain situations. Not everybody knows my background. Not everybody knows where I came up and what I went through and what made me me. Mm-hmm. So you have to have context to really understand 100% of Fred, and not everybody will have that opportunity. So I'll give them 95%. Nobody's ever going to know exactly what's on my mind at all times, but I'm going to tell you, you're going to get 95% of me, and I'll let you know if you don't understand exactly what the hell I mean. You know what I mean? So you're going to know, because it's best for you in our relationship, and it's going to be best for me because I value consistency, in the people that I'm around, and I give them the same thing. That's why I value it. And to your point, real quick, about what you value, what we value, what accomplished men value. More people need to realize that things are not as valuable as people.
Mm-hmm.
What I value is people and the effect I have on people's lives.
Yep.
And I don't have to know when I have been used to have an effect on people. I just appreciate the opportunity that God gives me to have an impact on people. If through some way the Spirit uses me and God uses me to affect someone in a positive way, I'm grateful for that. I don't need to know about it. But my endeavor in life is simply to love people and to be used in a positive way to help people affect some type of positive outcome or change in their lives, right? So what I accomplish personally and physically, outside of that, because things come and go, man, everything is going to decay, you know. uh, at some point you're only as valuable as the effect of what you contribute to someone else's life and what they can
Absolutely.
pass on to somebody else, as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned two constructs, and I want to kind of close with this. You said context is important in order to be completely authentic.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Right. And you also said time. And so I want our listeners to really think about that. When you're asking someone to be authentic, you're asking someone to be vulnerable. Do you are you willing to carve out the time that it takes to really get to know that person? And are you willing to travel through the terrains of their own personal contextual mess to really appreciate, right, Fred?
Yeah.
Appreciate
Right.
their journey. Because the thing is, I can't sit here, I meaning men, we can't sit here in 5 minutes at a date. We can't tell you everything. And so the way that we've been fashion designed, as Fred put it so poignantly, it takes time to really get to understand, and you've got to have the right context. And that can't happen in 1 date, 5 dates, or 10 dates. However, women, be intentional about the questions that you ask him. Be desirous to know about his path, his journey, how he got to where he is. Don't be so enamored with the job that he holds, how much money he makes, the house he lives in. Be more enamored in the journey it took him to get all of those things, because in that journey will you find out the true man. The journey is what created the outcome of all of those tangible things. Those tangible things he didn't just wake up and have just by a snap of a finger. It came through a lot of blunder, a lot of failures, a lot of heartache, a lot of pain. Get to know that brother right there. That'll tell you who he really is.
Right. I agree. And by the same token, if he's not trying to find all these things out about you,
Yeah,
beware.
absolutely. He should be
Beware.
asking just the same questions.
If
Right.
you know, find somebody who's willing to invest as much in you as you are in him.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not willing to invest that soul searching discussion, that soul searching time in
Mm-hmm.
you, if he doesn't have time for you, if he's, only interested in booty calls, or if he's, a good boyfriend for 2 weeks and then disappears for 3 weeks, you know what I mean? Something's up. Something's up. If he's never had a long-term relationship and he's 40, something's up.
Ooh.
He might be emotionally unavailable.
Ooh.
He's had a recent breakup and is in pain. He might be emotionally unavailable.
Mm-hmm.
If he tells you, I ain't looking for a long-term relationship, believe that.
Yeah, believe him. Believe him. Yep.
Believe that.
Hey, Fred, great show, man. We're at time.
Yes, sir.
Listeners, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Grateful for the comments. We're going to conclude this series, The Unspoken Truths on Why You're Single. We're going to conclude the series part 7 next week. We won't give you the spoiler and let you know what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be a culmination of all the things that we've been talking about the last 6 episodes. Thank you to Christy. She's actually Dr. Christy, another one of these doctors who doesn't like to put herself out there, but I'll put it out there. Dr. Christy Wood Turner. Thank you for your lens tonight. Phenomenal sociologist. Got me thinking about this theory I want to go look up, and you added so much flavor to the conversation tonight. Fred, you know what we do, as we do always, brother. I appreciate you, man.
I had a great time, man.
Yeah.
Great discussion.
Yeah. All right, good brother. I'll see you next
All
week.
right, man. Next week.
Yes. All right, bro.